At the end of last year, we bumped into an issue of sculptures and statues, and I see he devotes a page and a half to this idea. I don't want to get into it. Dragons. Let's carry on with the issues of Coseiv. 957. The point that we're in the middle of from the previous section was about making an imprint of any kind. Writing is not just writing with ink and paper, but making any kind of intelligible, meaningful symbol or sign. So we discussed engraving, and that's what got us into sculpting. We'll carry on now with GB on 957, walking on snow. Okay? You're back, Eleni.
I am. Thank you.
We saved your position for you.
I'm happy to. I've been listening to the recording. Thank you.
Oh, good. Good.
957. Yeah, B. Okay. Walking on snow with shoes or boots bearing letters on the heels. One is permitted to walk on snow or soft soil while wearing shoes or boots whose heels or soles are made.
Let me stop you, please. Sylvia, can you please mute everybody? Okay, carry on, please.
Can I start again?
No, just go ahead. There was some background noise.
Okay. Even though it is quite inevitable that an inverse marking will be impressed into the snow or soil with each step. Walking in the shoes or boots on snow, etc., is permitted on the basis of a combination of halachic factors, among them the principle of shinui. The writing is being executed in an awkward or backhanded manner, and the principle of psik resha, deloi nechale. However, one should not deliberately walk on snow or soft surfaces with the intention of forming or impressing any designs.
Okay. Do they still do that? Do they still make letters and designs in the heels of shoes or boots? Okay.
Takis do sneakers. Signing for urgent purposes on Shabbos. To register in a hospital or to consent to surgery. If one must admit himself or another patient into the hospital on Shabbos, he may not sign to register unless the hospital administration will not admit the patient otherwise, and the patient's life may be in danger. Similarly, if urgent surgery is required, the necessary consent documents may be signed if the surgery will not be performed otherwise, and the patient's life is in danger. In these circumstances, one should attempt to persuade the authorities to accept oral consent or to have a non-Jew sign instead. If this is unsuccessful, then the documents should, if possible, be signed in a shinui fashion, i.e. with one's left hand. A left-handed person should sign with his right hand, and an ambidextrous person should hold the pen in an awkward manner. Example, with the back of the hand, i.e. writing with the palm facing up and the pen grasped between two fingers, or with the pen held between the outstretched fingers. The signature should also be as abbreviated as possible. If possible, one should simply...
The idea is that even where it's necessary for pikuach nefesh, first of all, the signature is not a life-saving act. It's just because it's a procedure that the hospital requires, but in and of itself, it's not doing anything for the patient. Second of all, even where you're being necessarily, legitimately violating Shabbos laws because of pikuach nefesh, if you're able to minimize the Isur and bring it down to an Isur Drabonon without wasting time, then you should do so. Okay, carry on. Example.
If possible, one should simply scribble an unintelligible line or marking in place of a true signature. One should use initials instead of a full name wherever possible. Signing to receive mail or parcel delivery. If a parcel arrives at one's home on Shabbos, one may not sign the receipt, but may inform, just moving so I don't disturb with the background noise, or one may inform the non-Jewish mail deliverer that he cannot sign that day and allow but not instruct the deliverer to sign himself of his own accord. If the mail deliverer is Jewish, he must be told not to sign. If he signs anyway, the mail may still be opened after Shabbos. In most cases, the mail or parcel may not be handled on Shabbos or Yom Tov because it is probably muktzah. Even if one knows that it is definitely not muktzah, the letter or parcel should not be taken directly from the hand of the deliverer, because at some point earlier, the mail deliverer lifted the parcel or letter in Rishus Harabim, initiated the act of Hotzoah, to bring it to the recipient. Hence, when the recipient, the Jew, takes it from his hand and lays it down, he effectively completes the Melacha act of Hotzoah. The proper procedure is to ask the non-Jew to set it down in a safe place.
Okay, you said before it's probably muktzah, even if you know that it's not muktzah. What would make it muktzah? What would make it muktzah?
If you don't need it on the Shabbos. You can't even receive it on Shabbos. You can't receive something on Shabbos.
You mean as a gift?
Kenyan, yeah, you can't acquire something new. But I don't think that's the muktzah reason. I think the muktzah is that because of that, you're not going to have a use for it.
You're not going to have a use for it. So let's say, and this used to happen quite often, that people who lived outside of New York would get matzah. The Rebbe would distribute matzah Erev Pesach. So if you lived in the area, good. So you got it Erev Pesach, or someone received it from the Rebbe and sent it to you all Erev Pesach. But if you didn't live close enough, so often it would arrive by airmail on Yom Tov. So you know what it is, it's matzah. And you have a use for it that day. You're probably going to use it for the Seder, the second Seder. But first of all, it may have arrived from Chutz Litachum. In other words, it may have come to you from a delivery that arrived in your area on Yom Tov. So it was brought to you from Chutz L'Tchum, outside the Tchum of Shabbos. Second of all, the issue of, by the way, why is there no problem with Kinyan? Because the person who sent you the matzah acquired it for you. He's sending you your matzah. Okay?
Okay.
If you know that it arrived in your area before Shabbos or before Yom Tov, then we're concerned about the other part of it. Don't take it from his hand. There's another reason that the Alter Rebbe brings about Shabbos, that it looks like you asked him to bring it for you today, if you take it from him directly. So you can tell him to come in, put it down, That completes the malach of hoitzah, so there's no more problem of taking it from his hand. And then the only issue would be muktzah. Okay? So that's what you have to make sure.
Rabbinical restrictions of Coseiv. Activities that usually relate to writing in one way or another are rabbinically prohibited because of the likelihood that they will lead inadvertently to the malacha of Coseiv. There are numerous categories of restrictions included under this rabbinic ordinance. Only some are discussed here. Many of these rabbinic categories are also related to the general prohibition of dabar davar, an important separate set of Isaiah Shabbos restrictions derived from the book of Isaiah, covered in section 1.
Sorry, can I just interrupt a minute? If you've ordered a parcel from a company and they arrive on Shabbos and you tell the guy to put it down and you don't sign, are you allowed to take it into your place? If it's a building, it's a flat where there's other people coming in and
See, he's not going to deliver it to the building. He'll deliver it to your flat.
no, to the entrance of the building. He won't deliver it to my flat. He delivers it to the entrance of the building.
You have an Erev in the building?
No. Well, the Erev is around the whole area, not particularly.
You have an Erev. Then you'd be able to take it from outside your flat, inside your flat, yes. If it's not a mukta item.
And if it's a mukta item, you have to leave it there till after Shabbos.
If it's a mukta item, you can ask a goy to pick it up and bring it into your flat.
Okay.
But Rabbi Weinberg, he's bringing it from an area outside of the Erev.
Yeah,
So
that
he's
doesn't
coming-
matter as long as it's from within the city limits, within the tchum. The fact that he's bringing it from outside doesn't disqualify the item itself. No malacha was done with the item itself.
I see.
That's one of the peculiarities of the malacha of hoitzah, is that nothing changes about the object that was transported in or out. So if it was brought to you, this question often comes up when people who are not Shomer Shabbos come to you and bring a gift. You invited them for Shabbos lunch, so they bring a gift with them. So there was a malacha, a Hilchos Shabbos, that was involved in their getting the gift to you. Maybe they drove. I mean, that has all kinds of other issues which we've talked about in the past. Inviting people who would drive. I'm not going to get back into that now. But there was an Hilchos Shabbos done in order to get the item to you. But that Hilchos Shabbos didn't involve the item itself. For example, if they brought you a real nice coconut, which they harvested that morning from a coconut tree, then the malacha was done with the coconut itself. It was detached from the place where it grew on Shabbos. That would be also all Shabbos. But if the malacha was done to the object, but not with the object, in other words, it was transported in a way that involved Hilchos Shabbos, whether the driving or whether the hoitzah, that is not a malacha done with the item itself. So the malacha didn't achieve anything in the item. So that doesn't become also on Shabbos itself, except that if they bring a gift that's not a participation in the Shabbos meal, it's a non-food. Maybe they brought a tray. Maybe they bought you the set of towels. Then you should not receive that on Shabbos, and you should put it away for after Shabbos. Not muktzah, but you put it away for after Shabbos.
So you
Rabbi
tell
Weinberg-
them to put it down. You tell them to put it down and you don't pick it up.
No. If you're within the Erev, I mean, they came into your house. Sure, they came into your house holding this. I don't think there's an issue of Hoitzah. Presumably, you're living within the Erev area, so that's not an issue. Yeah? Bringing it from with them, carrying it, or if they're driving, taking it from the car, that's not an issue of Hoitzah. So you can take it from their hand. But don't use it till after Shabbos.
Thank you.
That's very good to know. That's very good to know because then you're not insulting them. So it is better to take it from their hand.
Okay.
But Rabbi Weinberg, isn't that a Kenyan?
Sorry.
Isn't that a Kenyan?
What? They're receiving it from the giver.
Yeah.
Well, you can intend not to acquire it
Yes.
until after Shabbos.
Yes. So
you
you leave
can-
it with your intention. You're actually physically taking it with your hand doesn't facilitate the full Kenyan. Your intention
Right.
disrupts that. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Rabbi Weinberg, and what happens if it's flowers? Can you put the flowers in water?
Now you're stretching things. Now we're
No.
going to get into a discussion about flowers and water. You're not allowed to put flowers in water if they're not coming from water. If then they won't die before Shabbos ends, if it's Shabbos lunch.
Can
Okay.
you put it in the sink? Can you put it in the sink?
You can put it in this sink. If the sink is not backed up with water, if it has water in it, then it's just like a vase. But if there's no water there, except that you're going to open the water eventually through Shabbos, fine.
Okay, so in other words, you can put it in a vase without water on the table so that they do see that the flowers are on the table.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. Yeah. Getting more tricky because now you're using it. You know, actually, I think it's an important part of the chinuch. When you invite people for Shabbos, it's got to be more than a meal. So, assuming you know who it is that you're inviting, you know what they're like. So, part of the invitation should be to guide them, to instruct them in the points of Shabbos. They should learn the Shabbos means that you don't do this or you do that. And it should be always more than just the meal. It should involve something, why lechem mishneh, and depending on what the guest knows, depending also on their temperament, are they going to get all uncomfortable if you instruct them? There are other ways. You teach your child, and meanwhile they're here. But it's got to be more than just an invitation to a good meal. Okay? So part of that can be that we don't make things grow on Shabbos. So I'm not putting it into a vase with water. After Shabbos, I'll add the water. Good? Are you happy, Fegi?
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, temporary writing. As explained earlier, only a symbol that is lasting and made on a permanent surface is included under the malacha of midoraisa of Coseiv. However, making a symbol that can last only temporarily, example, tracing letters on a frosted or fogged window pane, is not the malacha midoraisa. Even so, one is not permitted to actually make a temporary symbol on any kind of surface. Doing so is rabbinically prohibited because it closely resembles the midoraisa version of the malacha. To allow temporary writing could result in confusion and widespread chilul haShabbos. Therefore, the sages imposed restrictions on it as a protective measure. Examples. One is not permitted to trace pictures on a misted window pane or dusty tabletop, or to form letters by arranging small objects or particles together in the shape of a letter or picture. Example, lining Cheerios vertically and horizontally to form the letter T. One should not fit and hold together the two sides of a torn page for the purpose of combining the broken letters to make them legible. One may not decorate a cake by forming a design with whip topping. One may not fashion a length of rope, wire, string, ribbon, licorice, etc. into the shape of a letter or image. Example, bird or flower. I have an example, Rabbi. My younger child took a stick that's used for sushi eating and took a paper plate and was writing or drawing something on the paper plate. So there was indentation that would have been permanent. They didn't realize that it's Coseiv, so I explained it.
Very good.
A magic slate.
Etch-a-sketch.
Etch-a-sketch. As explained, creating even a temporary impression or image is rabbinically prohibited. Accordingly, one may not impress letters or pictures onto a waxed writing pad, magic slate, even though they can be quickly erased by pulling up the thin cellophane covering. Similarly, one may not draw pictures on the screen of a mechanical toy which uses magnetized dust and a knob-controlled mechanism or other devices to draw letters and symbols, etch-a-sketch or magna-doodle. Games composed of magnetized pins in an enclosed glass or plastic cube can capture the image of items pressed against it. 3D pin art are also forbidden to be used on Shabbos, even though the images fade away after a short time. These toys may also not be shaken and agitated to blot out an existing drawing or image from the screen. Rabbi, we used to have a toy like this. I'm just realizing it just was pins that you could flip the plastic case this way or that way. And we would put our hand into the pins and that would create a hand, and then we would turn it around and it would come apart. Obviously, that's a problem. We would do it more for the sensation on the hand than creating the hand print. It just was nice to feel.
A pin sticking up.
It's very temporary.
I no longer have it. It was a plastic thing with lots of pins coming down like this. And then when you turned it, the pins would fall to the other side. Sorry, I'm holding a phone. And
okay, yeah.
The pins would fall this way or that way, depending on how you move the thing. So if the pins were up, you would stick your hand down and it would leave an indentation of your hand. And then you would flip it over and it would release the indentation and you do it again.
But it's also very temporary. You just move it and the pins move.
But so is this 3D pin art. It's exactly what this pin art looks like. That's why I'm bringing it up.
In a way, this is more permanent. Because if you don't turn it over, it's going to stay there. That's more permanent than the other things he's talking about. It takes an action to undo.
And that's what he said. These toys may also not be shaken and agitated to blot out an existing drawing or image from the screen.
Yeah, that's about doing the action. But if it takes an action to undo, that's more permanent than what disappears by itself, like writing with a finger on a window pane.
Right. Good thing we don't have the toy. Okay.
Rabbi,
These
is
say-
moichek its own halacha, or is it just the opposite of Coseiv? Is it its own of
the malacha? Moichek is one of the 39.
Okay, thank you.
It's
These same
part of a
restrictions.
set. Like there are many of these sets, like stowing and tearing apart. Writing and erasing are another set, but each one is the malacha. Okay.
These same restrictions apply to similar toys in which a face is covered with magnetized metal shavings that are manipulated by a magnetized stylus. The objective of these games, known as Woolly Willy, Dapper Dan, etc., is to form a beard, goatee, etc. on the face. The fact that the beard is easily shaken off, or that the face is pre-existing, i.e. one is not creating a new image, are not sufficient basis for permitting this game. The act of adding a beard and the like to the face constitutes an enhancement and transformation of the picture and is therefore Coseiv. Permissible forms of temporary writing. In some cases, temporary markings are permitted on Shabbos and Yom Tov, as shall be seen further. Writing in the air or upon dry surfaces. It is permissible to draw letters or signs in the air or on a dry surface where virtually no mark is left in the air or on the surface, because this does not resemble Coseiv at all, since no mark or trace remains. Footmarks in snow or mud. One may walk on the snow or mud, even though distinct footprints will inevitably result. This is permitted for a combination of halachic reasons. An important underlying consideration is the fact that the resulting footprints are a rabbinic restriction at most, eino miskayim, and that is almost impossible for most people to avoid the necessity to walk outdoors during Shabbos. The rabbinic restriction is therefore waived in this case at its inception. See our discussion above, chapter 2. Business transaction.
In other words, Chachomim never imposed the Gzeira in the first place. It's not clear what he means at its inception. Being that you can't avoid at some stage walking on ground and making a footprint, especially during the rainy season when the ground was muddy and most of the streets weren't paved, so Chazal never imposed the Gzeira on that. Okay? Not that you're doing it with an exemption, but there was no Gzeira in the first place. Yes, Chava. Chava? Oh, that's my cursor.
I never asked
Okay.
anything, Rabbi.
All right. I saw the hand raised, but that's my cursor. Okay. Please carry
Business
on.
transactions. It is prohibited to engage in business or any transactions because they are usually accompanied by accounting and writing. The transaction need not be an official affair. Informal but explicit oral business agreement is also prohibited. This also includes renting, leasing, and the giving of gifts. Examples: shaking hands on an agreement to buy a bike, car, used furniture, etc., or even negotiating a price is also prohibited under the restrictions of Nimtzoi Chetzecho and Dabe'er Davar, the Isaac Shabbos restrictions. Presenting a bar mitzvah boy with a sefer, as is customary in some congregations, is an example of gift giving that is not permitted on Shabbos, without certain conditions as explained below. Similarly, friends of a kala, colloquial term for a girl is engaged, who wish to present her with a gift on Shabbos at a party in her honor, must be aware of this problem. One solution is to transfer the gift, example, by handing it back and forth to a third individual who acts as an agent for the recipient before Shabbos. The gift therefore belongs to the recipient without their prior knowledge and without them actually having received it before Shabbos.
This is what I meant before about the matzah. The person who received the matzah is receiving it on your behalf, so it actually belongs to you from before Yom Tov. If this was not done, carry on.
Shabbos, the gift may still be presented, but the recipient should have in mind and be so instructed not to acquire legal ownership until after Shabbos or Yom Tov.
You know, this comes up. It's an interesting case, which often comes up when people travel for Pesach. So it sometimes happens that where they are is, let's say, 6 hours behind the local place where the chometz is. So when the Beis Din buys back the chometz from the goy after Pesach, there's, on behalf of all the owners, there's another 6 hours to go of Yom Tov wherever the owners are. Suppose they're in New York, and the sale of the chometz happened here. So before Pesach, you're covered. You sold it 6 hours earlier. That's fine. But what about the Beis Din buying it back 6 hours too early, while there's 6 hours of Yom Tov left for you in New York? So doesn't that mean that you're acquiring the chometz during Yom Tov? So the answer is, as we're learning here, you don't acquire what you don't want to acquire. So if you stipulate that you don't want to acquire the chometz before Yom Tov is over, so you're not going to the chometz. So it's good to stipulate, but even if you didn't, it's not a problem because it's understood that you don't want the chometz until Yom Tov is over. After all, that's why you sold it in the first place, because you didn't want to have it in your shoes during Yom Tov. So you surely don't want to buy it back before Yom Tov is over. Clear? Okay, 3 conditions, transactions for Shabbos needs. Hello?
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, I've been reading away. Transactions for Shabbos needs. In some small or close-knit communities where a strong element of trust exists between members of the community, shopkeepers often allow their patrons to take merchandise on credit simply on their word that they will pay later. However, as explained earlier, this is generally prohibited on Shabbos because it is usually accompanied by writing and record keeping. Notwithstanding the above, there are permissible methods for purchasing Shabbos needs without exchanging money on Shabbos, even from grocers and shopkeepers. However, it should be emphasized that only Shabbos or Yom Tov needs on Yom Tov are ever permitted. The 3 conditions for permitting transactions. There are numerous restrictions governing the use of terminology and the conduct of these transactions. These restrictions are designed to eliminate as much as possible the commercial appearance and character of these transactions and must be followed meticulously. For example, the individuals may not negotiate on a price or even discuss what the item will cost, as the tone of any such dialogue would add to the business-like character of the transaction. Any specific discussions on the value of the transaction are therefore forbidden on Shabbos and would have to be settled after Shabbos. However, by complying with certain halachic conditions, one can consummate a necessary transaction on Shabbos permissibly. There are basically 3 conditions that must be met when making any transaction on Shabbos or Yom Tov. The term buy and sell must not be used. Use of words to the effect that one will pay after Shabbos is forbidden. One may not ask for items by weight or cost. Each of these halachic conditions shall be elaborated further. The terms buy and sell must not be used. One may not request an item by using the term buy. May I buy a dozen eggs, even without discussing the price. However, if one is careful to avoid explicit business terms such as buy and sell, making the transaction is permitted. One may request, not using the term may I buy, a dozen eggs, package of sugar, container of milk, 50 candies or lollipops, etc., without discussing the price. One should rather say, may I take or may I have a dozen eggs, etc. Use of the words to the effect that one will pay after Shabbos is forbidden. One may not explicitly verbalize that he will pay for the things after Shabbos, nor may the grocer ask the patron when he will be paid for the goods. However, the buyer may verbally assure the grocer with words to the effect that he need not worry about being recompensed. Examples: a patron may say to the grocer that he will make arrangements or settle things after Shabbos. A camper may go to the manager of the camp canteen and ask for a bag of potato chips, package of candies, goodies, cookies, etc., without discussing the price. The manager may ask him if he will settle things later, and the camper may assure the manager that he will make arrangements after Shabbos. However, he may not explicitly say, I will pay after Shabbos. One may not ask for items by weight or price. One may not request the identity and identify the needed items by a measure of weight or by a value amount, because this is a standard business terminology that is typical of ordinary buying and selling. Asking for the items in this manner simulates commerce and also detracts from the spirit and character of Shabbos. This restriction pertains especially to small items that are sold loose, example, nuts, candies, vegetables, etc., because they ordinarily must be measured and weighed at the time of sale to establish their price. Example, one may not ask for a pound of nuts, candies, or fruit. Actual weighing is prohibited in any case. Nor may one indicate a monetary amount, 50 cents worth, $1 worth, when requesting these items. However, one may ask for a specific number of items, 10 oranges, 6 apples, 2 packages of cookies, because the amount is mentioned simply to indicate what one needs, not what is being negotiated or purchased. It therefore lacks the appearance and character of shopping and can be permitted. Similarly, one may ask for a dozen eggs or a case of soda, because these items are sold as units. Hence, the term a dozen eggs does not indicate an amount that requires specific calculation for a particular price. This is in contrast with the term a pound of nuts, which does indeed require special weighing and measuring at the time of sale to establish the price. When buying loose items that require weighing, one may fill a bag or container to the desired approximate amount and promise the shopkeeper that an identical bag or container with the same commodity will be returned after Shabbos.
Okay, so usually people who deal like this have pre-filled bags or jars or something, so they don't have to go about measuring or weighing them on Shabbos. And the price is predetermined, so you don't have to discuss it. I think it comes up mostly in the case of a camp where the children go to the canteen in a context of a communal, what's it called, let's say a Shabbaton, where people get items, or in a hotel where you order room service. Okay, that's where it comes up.
Discussing a previous balance. One may not calculate any previous balance when requesting items on Shabbos.
Eleni, let's stop. Let's stop, and I'll take questions.
Okay. Rabbi, please excuse me. I have a commitment that I need to run to. Thank you for the class.
Okay. Thank you for being the banquet.
Rabbi Wineberg, thank you for
baby.
the. Thank you.
Okay. Questions?
I have two.
Go ahead.
Can one not feed, but if one is camping out or out in the bush, and there's a what did you call it? Like a trough, and you use the water and the birds feed from that water. Is that okay? Feeding birds water, wild birds water on Shabbos?
So if you're pouring out the water in any case, then you can pour it where you usually pour it. But you don't do something specifically to feed the birds. Okay? Now just remember, if you're pouring water on the ground or in the ground, it shouldn't be in a place where things can grow. There's a second question.
Looking at this chumash last night, I was quite shocked at this. Is discussing the laws of kashrut, and I'm going to quote, "The very act of cooking milk and meat together is forbidden, for it may lead to eating or deriving other benefit from the mixture. This is an act of cruelty, and it is forbidden to be cruel to animals. Nonetheless, you do not transgress this prohibition by cooking permissible wild animals, permissible fowl, or prohibited animals in milk." Is that okay? That's fascinating.
If you have a deer and you're cooking venison, why you're cooking it, I can't imagine, because you're not going to be allowed to eat the resulting mixture. But if you're really in the mood of cooking venison in milk, you're allowed to. What's the problem?
Why would that be permitted, but not seething a kid in its mother's milk? I mean, you wouldn't cook lamb in milk, okay? Because we don't mix meat and milk. But in this case, it specifically says that you can cook meat in milk, whether it's venison or a wild bird or whatever.
All right. The pasuk talks about lois vashel gedi b'chalev imoy. Don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. Now, mother's milk is not necessarily mother's. It's those animals which have a mother, not those which are hatched from an egg.
Okay.
So a kid includes any kind of kosher domestic animal.
Okay.
The kosher and domestic. If it's not a kosher animal, or it's a kosher animal but not a domestic animal, that's the example I gave you of the deer, the venison, then midrabanon, you're not allowed to eat them as the gzeira. Likewise with chicken, it's midrabanon. But the prohibition midrabanon was only for the act of eating. They didn't prohibit benefiting, and they didn't prohibit cooking. They prohibited eating chicken with milk, or venison with kosher milk, or treife meat. What I mean treife is from an impure kind of animal, not treife because you got it from hypermarket and it wasn't shechted, but it's beef or lamb. Those are the kosher kinds of domestic animals. They have to be shechted. If they weren't shechted, they're not kosher. Good, but the type of animal is they included in the category of a kid, right? That beef, lamb, mutton, all from kosher domestic animals. So, minat Torah, you'd be allowed to eat chicken cooked in milk. It's prohibited midrabanan, but like I said, the prohibition extends only to eating and not to using or cooking. So you're allowed to cook it, but why you go ahead and cook it and make it treif to eat? I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Rabbi Weinberg, I want to ask, if you're in a place where there's no Erev, like on holiday, if you put a key in a lock, can you open the door that opens outward with the key still in the lock?
The door opens outward toward you on the street.
Yes. Do you have to take the key out the lock?
Are you wearing the key?
No.
How'd you get the key to the door in the first place?
No, you're going out of your flat. So you open the gate with the key in, and you open the gate, you close it, you put your hand in the gate, lock it, and leave the key in.
You lock it and leave the key in.
So you lock it with your hand through the gate.
Yeah, and where did the key end up?
In the lock. It
I
stays in the
suppose-
lock.
But if you can put your hand in, then someone else can put their hand in.
Yes, I know. I just want the concept. Because I have another question after that.
Oh, all right. So theoretically, if the door is going to swing open with the key inside, is that permissible? Yes, it is.
Okay. Now I want to ask another question because we were in Amshlanga last week for Shabbos, and we got a key for the main gate, which we put on a Shabbos belt, and then we realized, came Shabbos, how are we going to get in and out of the flat? So we worked out, and that's why I want to know if we did the right thing. We worked out that because we thought we couldn't leave the key in the gate. So we worked out we opened the gate while inside, put the key on the floor. Then we went out, closed it, put our hand in the gate, very complicated, and putting our hand from each open space in the gate, we could put our hand and maneuver the key to the lock, with us standing on the outside of the gate, but the key being on the inside until we could open it. Was that permissible?
Remember, we had a teacher who used to smoke. And normally there was an ashtray there. So he put the ash in the ashtray. This time he came to give the shiur, and there's no ashtray. So he finished the shiur. It was a 3-hour shiur. So there are a couple of cigarette butts and quite a bit of ash on the desk. So, he didn't want to leave the mess. He's looking around for a tissue or something to clean it up. So one of the guys opens the desk drawer and takes out an ashtray. If you had the ashtray, why are you taking it out after 3 hours? So once you're making a Shabbos belt, you might as well make the belt for the inside key as well.
But we forgot. We didn't think.
Yeah, but there's ways of doing it on Shabbos as well. In any case, in your situation, number one, you could do an Erev for the other people in the complex.
Already on Shabbos.
No.
That's the point. We only realized this on Shabbos. That's where the problem came in.
Okay, and you didn't have any other need to carry around the complex on Shabbos other than the key. All right.
Yes.
So there you are, stuck on Shabbos morning. You're about to go to shul, and you discover that you don't have any place to put the key, or you can't carry the key. Yes, you may swing open the door and stick your hand through. I wouldn't recommend it security-wise, but So be it.
No, but what we did was we took out the key. So we took out the key, put it on the floor, closed the gate, put our hand in the gate, picked up the key. Now the gate's closed, and a gate you can open, you can put this side and that side, and like step up with the key in each hand till we got to the lock. And open and yes, I thought it was quite ingenious, but anyway, until we locked it. Then when we locked it, we put the key back down, and then we closed the door so nobody could see the key. So when we came back, I know, very complicated.
Very good. Very ingenious. Ingenious.
Then I said to Yaakov, I said, are we doing the right thing? Because we're outside and we're putting our hands inside, and our hands are carrying inside while we're standing outside. Are we doing the right thing?
Very good. It's a good question. It's a nice solution, but this actually goes beyond what you said before. So you're better off swinging the door with the key in it than manipulating the key while you're outside, manipulating the key while the key is inside. You're better off.
Yes, but we have to hide the key and know how to do the reverse when we come home.
Right.
So when we come home, the key's on the floor, hidden by the door. So you put your hand in, open the door, the key's there, and then you go through this whole procedure.
Okay. In the future, in the winter, presumably you're wearing something like a jersey. So put the key at the end of the string of the jersey and wrap it around and tie it to the other end. Got it?
I will know what to do in future. All I want to know is, did we do the wrong thing standing outside the gate and our hands carrying on the inside of the gate?
Under the circumstances, yes. Ordinarily, no. But I love the Yiddish Shamayim. Very good. And I'm picturing you and Yaakov standing there and working out exactly how to manipulate the key. Very good. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your holiday.
Baruch Hashem. Yes.
Any other questions, Chava?
Yes, Rabbi, I have a question. What is the best way to dispose of the little bits of dried challah that are left over on the challah board? Can you wrap it and throw it in the bin, or what can we do?
If they're just crumbs?
No, sometimes they're pieces.
If they're pieces, then put it into a bag or a piece of, let's say, non-see-through plastic, and then you can throw it away.
Even on Shabbos?
Yes. Yeah.
Fine, thank you. You don't have to leave it to feed to the birds later.
You can leave it, Gesundheit, leave it for after Shabbos to feed the birds. If you have birds which depend on you to be fed, they don't find their own food, then you can feed them even on Shabbos.
We were feeding birds in the garden, and the challah brought rats. So we stopped feeding the birds in the garden.
All right.
So that's why I rather dispose of it.
But they have bird feeders up hanging. So,
Yeah, but we've got like a water trough, and we used to leave bread around the water trough, and then we discovered that rats were eating it rather than the birds. So no more feeding.
I must tell you something funny. We had a bird feeder, and the hardy-daws would come and eat the little crumbs. Unbelievable. You wouldn't think that hardy-daws eat crumbs. And they
With a
broke the
big
bird
beak.
feeder because they were too big for them.
Hardy does eat
Okay.
everything.
Most notably, they eat Parktown prawns.
Baruch Hashem.
Wow.
Very good. Okay. Have a good week.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Weinberg.
Thank you,
I
Thank you,
appreciate
Rabbi.
the fellow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.